So a lot of hairstylists are kind of apprehensive about choosing to specialize in something like lived-in color. They fear that they're probably going to lose a lot of clients, but you will lose clients, that's the truth. But this is only really going to bother you if you think that specializing is simply just like keeping one service and then dropping the rest. There really is so much more to it than that, and I want to make sure that you're set up for success if you're thinking about specializing in lived-in color. By the way, for new here, my name is Lauren, and I have built multiple six-figure clienteles in different states by specializing in lived-in color. And the best part is I was actually making more money while taking less clients. I actually have a whole video about all of the benefits of specializing right here if you want to check that out. But in this video, I just wanted to make sure that you know the main things that you need to accomplish in order to make this a reality for you. I know you're seeing like all these famous influencers who are doing lived-in color on Instagram, and I am here to say that it is going to be far less intimidating than it appears to be. So that is something you could have some hope in. So I'm going to address your first fear just right off the bat. It is actually possible to decide to specialize in lived-in color and end up failing, not making enough money, and wondering why you did this in the first place. There is actually real risk involved in doing something that's different than industry standard. But that means that there's also an amazing potential for very high reward. We're not going to be gatekeeping anything, but if you're willing to do the things that I share with you in this video, I promise you, you are going to be successful. No matter what the economy is doing, no matter what any, prices are going up, if you do these things, you are going to have success. Like I kind of hinted at before, specializing is not just simply saying, okay, I'm just going to do this one service now, I'm going to drop the rest. And this does take a lot of intense focus and a lot of study and a lot of practice, but it also doesn't have to take years and years and years to accomplish this. Now, in order to get really, really good at something and actually develop that high level of mastery, you have a couple of options. The first option is to find like all the best classes, travel, to different parts of the country, learning from the best people in the industry who do exactly what you're trying to specialize in. But for me, this wasn't really realistic for me. I didn't have the money to really do that. And I just didn't see the point in spending so much money flying and taking time away from clients in order to kind of go to all of these different classes. So what you can do is what I did, which is I set a little budget for myself for education, because I do think, education is important. It is going to help jumpstart you and just kind of put you in the right direction, keep you inspired, and give you kind of the basics of what you need to understand and know in order to be really good at this. So I created a little budget for myself. I took only like 2 classes. And the remainder of my study was just having a really dedicated and focused practice time so that I could actually take the education that I was getting and make it my own. Because the only way that you're actually going to get better at something is if you have a ton of experience with it. And a lot of stylists think that okay, to get a lot of experience, you just have a lot of clients, and then over years and years, now you have all this experience, now you are confident with it. You can actually get confident with something very quickly if you have dedication and focus. And this is a lot easier said than done. And a little bit later in the video, I'll explain to you how to actually do this on your own. But being able to own your education does 2 really important things for you. The first one is it allows you to get away from being really reliant on somebody else for all the answers all of the time. This is so important because if clients are going to have confidence in you, you need to have confidence in yourself. You want to be the person that other hairstylists are coming to because you have all the answers. And this is something that no matter how much you pay for education, you'll never be able to achieve that. Let me know in the comments if you've ever been to a really expensive class and maybe you flew to it and you got lots of inspiration, lots of motivation from attending the class. But when you got back home and started working on clients, you were never able to make that education translate into more money, and more clients and just a growth in your business. Let me know in the comments if you've ever experienced that. This is because education does not make you better. It's important, but it's not the thing that actually makes you better. What makes you better is practice. And I know a lot of people understand, obviously, more practice, you're going to get better. But I don't think a lot of people understand what amount of practice is actually required to achieve the level of mastery that's needed to be able to specialize. And what ends up happening a lot of the time is, hairstylists will kind of wait for clients to come in. In the meantime, they're still busy with all the clients with the traditional services. So it becomes harder and harder to work in the practice time of actually creating growth for yourself and learning a new skill that's actually going to make you more money, because it's so much easier to just take all of these, cheaper services because you have them right now. You have the money right now. So it's really hard to set that time aside and to actually dedicate to practice when you're not going to make the money right away. So I kind of found myself in this situation of like, well, how am I supposed to practice and get good at something when all my clients are just doing traditional services? So what I would do is I just started to practice late at night. I just kind of didn't care about how many hours I was working, and I would just practice late at night, constantly be looking at inspiration photos, constantly be trying to recreate those inspiration photos. So there would be some weeks where essentially I'm putting in like 80 hours, because like after every single end of my day, I'm already exhausted, but now I'm also practicing. So I would be working really, really hard, and it was very, very exhausting, much more exhausting than just taking clients all day, going home and watching Netflix. It was very, very exhausting. But the key is, if you're able to do this for a little bit of time up front, you're able to then enjoy your career for a much longer time later. Because once you're able to start filling your books with people who are wanting lived in color and more custom services, you are not going to have to exhaust yourself so much every single day. So don't feel like, well, this is great, like I wouldn't have to work overtime just to kind of do practice. Like, don't kind of get yourself in that mindset. Just think, I have to work all the time, not sleep. But it's only going to last for a little bit. After that, I'm going to be able to kind of coast in my career a little bit. Now, you probably heard that quote before, that practice doesn't make perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. And that's absolutely true. Just because you're practicing doesn't mean you're actually going to get better. So let me just give you a few tips for when you decide to actually, commit some time to practicing. Here's what you just want to kind of focus on. So as color educator, one of the things, students are always asking me is, okay, I have this client, what placement should I do? So I believe that if you actually knew exactly which techniques offer which different end results, you wouldn't need to ask those questions anymore. You would just know. So here's what I would do to practice that, so that you can just be more confident and not feel like you have to ask everybody else for exactly what to do, or not feel like you need a new placement every single time you're trying to do like a new trend or something. So here's what I would do. Keep a running list of different effects that you see in inspiration photos that you would really like to create, and you're going to test out different ways to do that and analyze the results. You're essentially going to become, a scientist in order to get better. So you test the result, you keep a running list, you test out different ways to get to that result, and then you analyze the different results. Now, education comes in handy here because at least you have a starting point of what to test out, but you just want to make sure that you're not just following someone's placement, you're actually seeing, okay, when I do baby lights, what does it look like? When I do baby lights back to back, what does it look like? When I do baby lights with like an inch in between, what kind of effect does that give me? So I would like grab a doll head, section out 4 different quadrants, and I would practice different techniques on each one. So that way, when it comes time to actually perform a service, like somebody comes in with their specific desired end result, you're gonna know which techniques to use in which areas. And if you are specializing in lived in color, these are kind of the key things that you want to practice. So you want to practice different spacing, like I was talking about before. So if you have your doll head, you separate it into 4 quadrants. Maybe one of the quadrants you are just looking at spacing of baby lights. What does the different spacing of baby lights actually deliver as an effect? What happens when you do the baby lights back to back, and then you also tip out maybe half of the quantity left out? So baby lights, of course, is a big one. The next one is teasy lights. There are so many issues when it comes to teasy lights. They're too hard to detangle. You're not really sure how much to tease or exactly what you're doing when you're teasing. So being able to test out and analyze the results on your own, instead of just having to be told by somebody else what the different teasing effects are going to do, like actually test them out. Put other people's ideas to the test, put your own ideas to the test, have a journal, and actually take notes on what the effects are. And then, of course, take pictures to document this. So really fine slices, baby lights, teasy lights. And then the other thing that you're going to want to test is the different patterns within each foil. So sometimes maybe you take the lightener all the way up in a straight line. Sometimes maybe you take the lightener and you feather it at the top. Sometimes you take the lightener and you do almost like a balayage effect within the foil. Make sure that you are practicing, testing, analyzing the results, recording it, taking pictures to document your work. Now, let's say you struggle with toning a lot and you're always kind of going to different people and asking like, what formula do I need in order to get this color? People ask me that all the time, and like in forums and in groups, like hairstylists are always asking, what formula do I need to do this? Quickly, help me, give me a formula. I have a client coming in. I never want you to be in that position. I want you to know confidently that you are going to be able to formulate on your own. So why don't you use that same doll head and test out some formulas? So first, look at an inspiration photo, analyze the inspiration photo and say, okay, what toners would I use to get this end result? Write it down, and then you're going to test it on the different placements that you just put on that doll head. Because actually, the placement is going to largely affect what the overall tone is, even if you're using the exact same formula. So I can tell you this all day long, but when you actually put that into practice and actually see it for yourself, you're going to realize how different things can look with different placements. And this is going to help you in making your own decisions for what to tone with based on what you're doing for each client. The other thing that is going to affect the tone pretty dramatically is the level of lift. Whatever you lifted to, that remaining pigment is going to contribute to the overall tone. So if somebody gives you a formula on the internet, it's not going to necessarily translate into you getting that exact same result unless you've lifted to the exact same color, and like I said before, the dimension is exactly the same is the picture. Those things are variables that are always going to affect the overall tone. So you want to just test those variables. That way you're going to know, like if somebody gives me a formula on the internet, well, what is the spacing that I have and what level of lift do I have? Is that going to look darker, lighter? Is it going to look less warm or more cool if I use that same formula? Those are the things that you want to know. So again, become a curious scientist, test your work, document results, and just kind of analyze everything that you're doing. And by the way, if toning is something that you specifically struggle with, I created what's called my toning Bible. It's very inexpensive and affordable resource that you can use. It's like a huge database of all my favorite formulas with examples and how to use it, what the starting points are, and things like that. And then it also gives you a step-by-step formulation workshop so that you can kind of use this process every single time you formulate, and you don't have to feel like a lack of confidence and always second guessing yourself. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check that out in the link in the description below. But please, if you do this, make sure that you're actually testing the formulas, even that I give you. Don't just trust them and take them as they are. Actually test them out and see what they look like when you do them on different techniques and different spacing. Because it's my goal that hairstylists don't just consume information and assume that's making them better, but they actually own their education. I really, really want that for you. And trust me, like if you're able to do this, it's not going to take long for you to actually become confident taking lived-in clients, charging those higher prices, and just really enjoying your career. And I'll tell you guys that I've actually only ever taken about 2 classes when I became interested in specializing in lived-in color. And some of you might be thinking, 2 classes, like you're certainly not qualified to be teaching about lived-in color. But here's the thing, I know so many hairstylists who have taken so many classes, like 20 classes, flown to different states and spent lots of money and feeling that inspiration and motivation, and then coming back to the salon and still not being confident with toning, still not being confident in which placement to use, still always feeling like there's somebody else's placement out there that's going to help me finally get to that next level. What makes you qualified to be specializing is not by just taking more education. I think this is such a big misunderstanding in our industry is, if I take more education, then I get to raise my prices. But that education has to translate into you actually getting better and growing. And the only way that that happens is through a lot of experience. And, if you don't have clients to practice these on constantly, or even if you do, you need to be, looking at inspiration photos, testing ways to achieve those inspiration photos, analyzing those results, and documenting your progress. Okay, so once you have really built up your skill level, you're starting to feel really confident. Every client that walks in, you're starting to feel like, okay, you actually have a plan, you know what to do, it's not so scary anymore. The next thing that you need to be able to do is offer really high-end services and be able to market them. Now, a lot of people, when they think of high-end services and like a high-end experience, they kind of just go right to, okay, well, what does a salon look like? what's the aesthetic? What kind of beverages am I offering? Or do I, offer snacks? Or do I just dress a lot more professionally? Those are kind of the things that people think about when they think of high end. But I'll tell you from experience that I went from a really high end, like really fancy salon to working in like a little solo salon that was not completely decked out because I didn't have a lot of money to do that right away. But I was still able to make 6 figures my first year and offer a high end experience, because the main thing about a high end experience is really about you being able to understand your ideal clients really, really well, and them feeling like you understand them and care about those little details. That is the most high-end thing you can do, and that's the thing that clients really are excited to pay for. They don't price haggle you when you do things like that. They actually want to impress you and make sure that you enjoy working with them. It's the best thing in the world. So if you've already done all the different practice steps that we talked about before and all of the different steps to help you feel confident in doing what you're actually doing, that's pretty much half the battle, because now you have the confidence to bring in every time you're doing a consultation with somebody or you have a new appointment coming in. So you've already done half the battle by just dedicating that time to practice and elevating your skill level. Now you just need the proper messaging. And the reason is, if you have the proper messaging, you're going to be able to speak directly to the potential clients that you actually want to have in your chair. Now I have a whole playlist about how to help you out with your messaging and your marketing tactics specifically. So if you want to check that out, you can click right up here. But let me just give you a few main points here. So one of the big things that you obviously want to convey in your messaging and your marketing is competency. Like, the number one thing that clients are going to look for is, can you actually achieve the results that I am really excited about getting? And of course, since we did all that practice and you are consistently doing all that practice, you will have already done most of the work there. The second thing is confidence. And a lot of people realize they don't have a lot of confidence, but they're not really sure how to achieve confidence. And the thing is clients can smell lack of self-confidence from a mile away. So if you don't have confidence, they're not going to have confidence in you. And again, if you've done all that practice, you'll notice a pattern here. You're going to have that confidence. It's not going to be so scary to you. And with that elevated confidence, clients are going to be so drawn to that, and they're going to be willing to pay more. The other thing that you want to really showcase in your marketing, whether you're on social media, you're in person, no matter what type of marketing you're doing, you want to be able to demonstrate that you have a really deep understanding of your ideal clients and exactly what they desire, what their problems are, and you want to be able to position yourself with the solution to those. Now, of course, you can do this in so many different ways. Of course, you can do it on social media. You can create posts that demonstrate all these things: competency, confidence, and just the ability to understand your ideal clients. You can also do this in everyday life. I used to just treat, like, when somebody would hear I'm a hairstylist and they would start talking to me about their hair, I would just treat it as a consultation. I would listen to their concerns, take note of them, and try to offer solutions to them. If you can just do that in person, even if they haven't even tried the solution yet, they're already curious about booking you as their next hairstylist. Like, I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me where I've just kind of talked about the fact that I'm a hairstylist. They tell me their problems. I offer a few solutions for them right then and there. And they're just like messaging me like, okay, I need to see you. So there's so much impact that you can have if you have done that work, really elevated the mastery for lived in color by doing all that practice. There's so much that could come out of it, and it's really going to help your messaging and your marketing in the future. People are always asking me, like, what do I do to increase prices? How do I raise prices without people getting upset? There's a lot of people online, influencers, that are always saying, like, you need to charge your worth, like, don't settle, things like that. But the truth is, you're worth exactly what clients are willing to pay for your services. Nobody really owes you anything. So rather than just focusing on the end result of, like, just literally increasing prices across the board, try to focus on increasing your value. That is a thing that's going to earn you higher prices. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that stylists make when they go in and try to raise their prices is they have not created specific offers in order to justify those prices. If you want to have higher prices, you need to have offers that deliver a higher value, right? So in this video on the screen right here, I actually teach you how to create a really high value offer for your clients so that they're actually willing to pay more and they're actually more excited to book with you. So if you're interested in that, click the video on the screen right now. My name is Lauren. I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you over there.